National Police Academy, I, George John, would like to welcome the Honorable Chief Election Commissioner of India, Shri Sunil Arora, Dr. Shashank Goyal, the Chief Electoral Officer of Telangana, and the Director of the Academy, Shri Atul Karwal, to the dais.
Shri Sunil Arora to the Academy for this interaction with the trainees. Sir, we are very grateful to you that you have given your valuable time during ongoing elections to visit us and interact with the officer trainees here, who will shortly be departing for their election exposure attachment to the 4 election going states. This part of training is very crucial for them because they would be required to supervise election arrangements and ensure smooth conduct, fair and smooth conduct in their substantive charges. And this exposure at this point in time would, I'm sure, prepare them in a much better fashion when they see it happening and they can learn from actually being there on the ground. In addition to that, I must confess that not all batches get this opportunity. Many a times during the training, there are no major elections happening and many batches don't get the exposure which you now will be getting. I would also like to welcome Shri Shashank Goyal, Chief Electoral Officer of Telangana State, to our midst today. He's been kind enough to accept our invitation and join us for this interaction and briefing. Sir, a quick briefing about the batch which is in front of you. We have 137 IPS officers, 28 of them lady officers, a bigger number than ever before. I'm very happy to share that more and more ladies are joining the Indian Police Service. We also have 17 officers from 3 foreign nations, all police officers, 5 from Nepal and 6 each from Maldives and Bhutan. About 20% of them are married, about 2/3 of them have prior working experience. The average age is 28, and as has been the trend in the last few years as well, out of 137 IPS officers, 93 are engineers. I'm sure they are looking forward to the election attachment also because, as I shared with you, they have been cooped up in the academy for the last 3 months, and I'm sure they are ready to get out and see how the world has changed or not changed for the last 3 months that they have been here in the academy. So thank you very much once again, sir, for being with us, and I would now request a formal introduction of yours to the batch.
In charge, the Chief Election Commissioner. He served as Election Commissioner of India from 1st September 2017 to 1st December 2018 and was associated with the conduct of elections of the state assemblies in Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, Mizoram, Rajasthan, to name a few. While serving as the CEC, the Commission has successfully conducted the general election to the 17th Lok Sabha and assembly elections to the states of Andhra Pradesh, Arunachal Pradesh, Odisha, and Sikkim. Sir is a retired IAS officer of the 1980 batch belonging to the Rajasthan cadre. Shri Arora served as Secretary to Government of India in the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, where he spearheaded several initiatives including curation, restoration, and preservation of feature and non-feature films through digitization, review of film certification framework, and digitization of cable space. His stint at I&B was preceded by a 1-year term as Secretary to Government of India in the then newly formed Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship. In addition to consolidating the new ministry, Shri Arora steered the formulation and design of the National Policy for Skill Development and Entrepreneurship 2015 and established the National Skill Development Mission in a record time of 8 months. He also led the design and implementation of Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana. Shri Arora led the administrative and policy reforms to revitalize the then Indian Airlines as its chairman and managing director from 2000 to 2005. the first 2 years of which overlapped with his tenure as the Joint Secretary in Ministry of Civil Aviation. It was during this time that, besides showing an all-round improvement in the passenger services and on-time performance, Indian Airlines registered a net profit after many years. Just before joining the Ministry of Skill Development in Delhi in 2014, he served as Additional Chief Secretary Home to the Government of Rajasthan, driving formulation of policy, strategy, governance, and regulation for key sectors including civil defense, civil aviation, home guards, and jail administration.
Shri Atul Karwar ji, Director Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, National Police Academy. Joint Directors Shri Amit Garg ji and Madhusudan Reddy ji. My colleague from the Election Commission, Shan Goyal ji, who is CEO of Andhra Pradesh. All officer trainees present here, and officer trainees from our friendly countries, Bhutan, Nepal, and Maldives. Very happy to note that more and more women officers are joining IPS, just as more and more women officers, lady officers, are joining Indian Navy, Indian Army, Indian Air Force. And when we go to the states for a review of the district administration, we invariably find that the lady SPs and lady district magistrates, on the whole, give a more focused, articulate, cogent, and pithy presentation. I hope the male officers don't feel left out, but they now have a lot to catch up. It's indeed very heartening that you are going for the 5 port-bound states, Assam and 1 UT, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, West Bengal. My request to Umesh Sinha, who is the Secretary General of our Election Commission of India, senior most officer there in charge of administration and planning, and Director Sahab would be that they should not be sent to Puducherry at this stage, they can go later. But maximum number of them at the moment should be sent to West Bengal, Assam, Tamil Nadu and Kerala for different reasons. And the reasons are Assam has issues with on borders, still old outlawed movements now reconciled, but how much fully reconciled, only time will unfold. West Bengal, unfortunately, has a lot of law and order issues, bursting on a day-to-day basis. Tamil Nadu is so expenditure sensitive, it seems to be floating on a sea of money for various reasons. We have put 2 extremely competent officers with impeccable integrity and formidable domain knowledge, Madhuji and Mr. Balasubramaniam, Balakrishna in Tamil Nadu. Just as we have put 3 police observers, special police observers, instead of just district observers in West Bengal. Vivek Dubey ji, Ashok Sharma ji, and of course one general observer, Ajay Nayak ji. We had put 3 special police observers, one of whom his wife became very unwell, so we sent a substitute. Before I say anything else, and I have a little bit to say, I'd like to begin in this place tribute to the vision of Sardar Patel, whose phenomenal contribution in unifying India was at a particularly perilous time in history, ultimately led to a virtual redrawing of India's maps and constituting the country into an integrated republic. Otherwise, the British had left, when they left India after 190 years of occupation. And if you take Plassey 1757 and Buxar as the old historical landmarks, it almost was 190 years, bearing the revolt of 1857, and much later the naval revolt in Mumbai. Dr. Rajendra Prasad, the former president, in his diary, he made an entry on May 13, 1959, that there is today an India to think and talk about. It's very largely due to Sardar Patel's statesmanship and firm administration. Very recently, I and my wife, we had an opportunity to go to Statue of Unity at Kevadia. I can only say that it was a veritable pilgrimage. I am going to make a suggestion to the government, and I have already informally talked, that all professionals of all India services, be it IAS, IPS, Forest Service, and for that matter Central Services Group A at least, should be taken to Kevadia for 1 or 2 days, besides the sightseeing part, just see the kind of architectural wonder, the kind of vision. And I am told that this vision started in 2007 and got fructified in 18. I have also recently been studying for the last 6 months Sardar Patel's correspondence from 1945 to 50 in 10 volumes. 10 volumes only from 45 to 50. He passed away in November, December 50. This correspondence has been edited by Shri Durga Das Ji, an iconic journalist of his times. It's a meticulous compilation of letters and exchange of communication between leaders of that level, with Nehru, with Chakravarti Rajagopalachari ji, with Mahatma Gandhi himself, and many other leaders. And also, when the integration process was going on, his communication to some of those kings, ex-kings, who were reluctant to join the Union, were a virtual kind of iron fist in a velvet glove, which maybe, and we had some exceptions where he had to be very, very tough. For example, Junagadh and Gujarat, for example, Bhopal, for example, Hyderabad of course, and later on Goa, and Jammu Kashmir. In Jammu Kashmir, in one of the critical meetings, it was a meeting with Prime Minister, Union Home Minister. I'm sure you're all aware that at that time, Union Home Minister was also Minister of States for the integration of states. And he was helped by people like B.P. Menon Saab, who started his life virtually as a steno and made himself indispensable part of the saga of integration of states. His own book on those memoirs, published in 65, I think now brought out back, reprinted in 97 and now 2007-8, is another play true of how the Indian states were brought together. His daughter Maniben, who devoted her whole life to be at the side of her father, she had withheld these memoirs letters for a long time. and she said that she'll kind of release the same only when the events have distanced themselves. But she also observed that I have been late, but not too late. I suggest whenever you get time, and if you have the inclination, kindly go through this correspondence from your library, whether a soft copy form or a hard copy format. Durga Das ji, it is briefly stated that these volumes are the bones and sinews of Indian history of a crucial period. To the scholar and researcher, they offer a trail of source material. To the politician, they should serve as a guide. To the citizen, they provide inspiration. I would also like to recall at this moment that Sardar Patel was the architect of all India services. It was a unique vision created, and he said in one of the addressing the officers of the services at Metcalfe House, Delhi, which academy was later on shifted to Mussoorie, just as this academy was shifted from Mount Abu to this place. In 47, April 21st, your predecessors were brought up in the traditions in which they felt out of touch and kept themselves aloof from common run of people. It will be your bounden duty to treat the common man of India as your own, or to put it correctly, to feel yourself to be one of them. And you will have to learn not to despise or disregard them. In other words, you will have to adopt yourself to the democratic ethos of administration. In fact, if you see the old debates of Constituent Assembly, there was a lot of discussion on the creation of all India services. Many very eminent people, they also went to the extent of saying that these are the people, many of them who harassed us, who imprisoned us during the British times. And now you are making their successor services from ICS to IAS and from IP to IPS. And then, if you also see, no other article in any other constitution of the world has an analogous to Article 321, 311 and 314, A, which makes it difficult for the political people to punish officials and create these services. B, which guarantees the terms and privileges of the members of all India services in accordance with the assurances that Vallabhbhai had been giving prior to independence. And while replying to one of the eminent debaters of the leader of the Constituent Assembly, he also said, I wish to record in this House that if during the last 3 years most of the members of these services had not behaved patriotically and with loyalty, the union would have collapsed. In fact, there is also correspondence available of many states where another branch of services, Indian Political Service, they were serving, and they kept Sardar Patel and V.P. Menon totally in picture about the kind of intrigues which were going on those states with our neighbor newly created Pakistan to accede to them. Junagadh they wanted because they thought this will give them access to ports. Junagadh thought they will give them access to ports. Hyderabad, of course, had its own reasons. Each of these places had its own reasons. And it was not an easy thing to kind of, because in Jammu Kashmir especially, the Kabaili tribe, these raiders had come so near that virtually Srinagar would have been cut off. So in that crucial meeting which I referred to earlier, the then army in charge said, I want my orders, because there was a stupefied silence in the room, as to what is to be done. And Sardar Patel said, you already have your orders, what are you waiting for? And nobody said, opposed it, which means the army had been told to kind of do what they needed to do. And they performed their jobs valiantly and very gallantly. And Sardar Patel said, quote, I wish to record in this house that if during the last 2 or 3 years that I have already read, and if the honorable members decide not to have this service, I will take these services with me and go. They will earn their living. They are capable people. Today my secretary can write a note opposed to my views. I have given that freedom to all my secretaries. I have also told them, if you do not give your honest opinion, can you please resign from service and go. Having said that, we come to ECI. Again, the vision of the founding fathers has to be admired. Republic of India was formally declared. I suppose you could stop exchanging notes, please. Third row, lady and officer. The Republic of India was declared on 26 January 1950. The Election Commission was formally, that it will be an institution of India, was formally declared on 25th January. That is 1 day before the Republic of India was announced. I think nowhere else in the world you would have a similar declaration, even from the oldest democracy or the largest, the most oldest democracy, let's say UK, or for that matter, the most successful democracy, as they have say US, about the declaration of the commission a day or two prior to the promulgation of the Republic of the Constitution, as you may like to call it. Every constitution, its life is in the preamble. In USA, for example, when the parchment of independence, the declaration was taken to Benjamin Franklin, one of the most illustrious founding fathers of USA. He normally used to live in Philadelphia. If you go there, you see that museum. He struck only one word. It was that we the people of Mecca, and the word God was used. He was a very devout Christian all his life. But he said that there has to be a clear difference between the temporal role of the state and the religious or ritual role of the state. Similarly, our constitution says, we the people of India, give unto ourselves. And I think all of you must be knowing all these words of preamble, and that's the real spirit of the constitution. So commission was created under Article 324. What does Article 324 says? Superintendence, control, and administration of elections in the country. Superintendence, control, and administration of elections in the country. It was initially a one-member commission. Later on, due to whatever reasons, it was made a multi-member commission. Unlike even UPSC, where the chairman has a casting vote, in the commission there is no such thing as casting vote. Every member is same, except that certain papers come to the CEC on the administrative side. On the quasi-judicial side, every member has the same role. I am told that I have been through so many districts now. I have been ACS home also, with the grace of God. The role of the DMs and the SPs, as well as the role of what you call sub-collectors in some states, SDOs in some states, and your circle officers, what you call circle officers, DYSP, different names, or SDPOs in some states, is exceptionally important. You have a kind of pyramid Election Commission at the apex. Just next to that tier is a tier of district observers. In between you put special observers if and when the need be. If and when and where the need be. They are normally retired DGs, they are normally retired officers of the CBDT in the rank of chairman or equivalent, or general observers, mostly retired secretaries to the Government of India. And I still remember that in West Bengal, in the last parliament elections, it was the report of Shri Vivek Dubey, who is still there, and Shri A.K. Naik, the general observer, the combined report, a very detailed report, which kind of resulted in the shifting of 5 police commissioners, 5 or 6 district magistrates, and number of other officials in one day. They started calling it Black Friday there, but that was not without reason. That was after both the observers had visited most of the districts, special observers, and then given a very well documented and well researched report, which were held prior to the elections of these 4 states. At that point of time, even most of the democracies in and around this region had postponed the elections. And Bihar, at the time of going to elections, had 7.34 crore of electors. The first decision we took was that we said that the maximum you could have 1,500 people per booth. So one of the first decisions was that no, it will be 1,000. And that has become a template ever since for West Bengal, Assam, the current poll-going districts. Until this corona issue is not settled, it will remain so. Secondly, we evolved norms of that only 2 persons can accompany the candidate when they fill their nomination. 5 persons maximum can go to somebody for canvassing. All these norms were created sometimes in August 2020. While announcing those elections of Bihar to the press, I used an expression, for us, for commission, it's a leap of faith and not a leap in the dark. That was not just a kind of rhetorical expression. We knew how much some of our officers behind the scenes had worked. Chandrabhushan Kumar, DEC of Bihar, who is in charge of Bihar, Srinivasan, CEO Bihar, and all their colleagues, the local ADG, Law and Order, the local Chief Secretary, all of them had really put in better than their best. And district machinery, I am glad to report to you, I am using the word report deliberately, so that you get a bit inspired by this. At least 2 district magistrates, they had corona, and they joined their duties back, and they refused. They said, sir, unless you want to remove us, we would like to do the election duty. Any elections is people, that's the voters. The second priority is political entities or political parties. We refrain from using expressions like ruling party, opposition party, because we only use the name of the party. It's the people who decide which is to be ruling and which is to be opposition, etc. And then, after that, you have to be so thorough in your rules and regulations. You cannot afford to make a mistake. I am repeating, you cannot afford to make a mistake. Whether it is the representations of people Act 50, 51, then subsequent amendment, major amendments done 61. You, at the micro level especially, when you are very, very senior, have to know it exactly. A single mistake and you are gone. And this is not a miracle. This is not, even in other words, when you are investigating criminal cases, whether under IPC and using CRP as a backdrop, and also Evidence Act as a backdrop. All these issues also you have to be very thorough. You can't kind of afford to commit a mistake there, because those are the things which affect people's lives. For example, there is a very detailed debate about the usage of the sections relating to sedition these days, and all said and done, the debate has its takers. In Mahendra Singh Gill versus CC, when it used to be a single member commission, observed, quote, democracy is government by the people. It's a continual participating operation, not a cataclysmic periodic exercise. The little man in his multitude, marking his vote at the poll, does a social audit of his parliament plus political choice of this proxy. Although the full flower of participating government rarely blossoms, the minimum credentials of popular government is to appeal to the people after every term for a renewal of confidence. So we have adult franchise. Another remarkable thing that right from day one we had universal adult franchise. It took UK more than 400-500 years to give adult franchise to their lady voters. It took even USA more than 100 years. And what happened to the racially discriminated people, that's history, which I need not repeat. So we have adult franchise and general elections as constitutional compulsions. It needs little to be argued, little argument to hold, that the heart of parliamentary system is free and fair elections, periodically held based on adult franchise, although social and economic democracy may demand much more. So you're all welcome.
Sir, my name is Amin Jamal. Sir, with changing times, sir, we see a lot of debate, discussions and critical analysis by various stakeholders in our democracy regarding constitutional institutions. So with regard to this change and related adaptation, my question is, how will be the evolution of Election Commission of India visible in near future in terms of constitutional mandate and independence? And also, sir, in your opinion, is there a need to not just function independently but also to aggressively portray and present that independence, or are we just doing fine in this regard? Thank you, sir.
It's a very good question. You see, in UK there is a regulatory system for the social media. But that is quite rather weak in the manner of speaking. In Germany they have evolved much more stringent system. In India there is hardly any legislative framework so far. There is only debate going on whether how much regulation should be there, should not be there. But very recently, in the last 1 year, Honorable Supreme Court has made its kind of displeasure at frivolous, prurient news which can stoke communal fires or, for that matter, do any other mischief, has been growing more and more stringent. And there have been some amendments in the recent IT Act. As far as the Election Commission is concerned, I will divide my answer in two parts because your question was also in two parts. A, before the Lok Sabha elections, our senior officers, led by our Secretary General, they had a series of dialogues with the social media associations and with the social media India heads. And then these associations voluntarily came up with a code of ethics. I request our CEO Shashankji to get a copy of that made available to the director, and in turn you can be given that for perusal. Second part is that I'll give you another example recently. Somebody wrote on the social media allegedly a speech by one of these senior most election commissioners, retired Mr. Krishnamurthy, about his stringent criticism of EVMs. When we started finding out the details, Mr. Krishnamurthy sent a detailed reply on his own to the commission that I had never made this speech in the past. I have not made this speech now. So I myself, I know exactly what EVMs stand for, and I think it's a huge tribute to Indian democracy that these instruments were created by a group of scientists and highly spoken of technocrats. And then on the basis of that statement, we lodged an FIR, the commission lodged an FIR in Delhi police. It's under investigation. There has been another incident almost 10 days back, a so-called sting operation by a TV channel, which has been found to be false in one of the poll-going states, which has been found to be false, which has been found to be motivated. But everybody doesn't, every dialogue which comes on social media does not have similar motives. There is a general comment on the degradation of institutions, etc., etc. There is another issue also that mostly it's the younger people who participate. A whole lot of them do not, unfortunately, go beyond Google handles. To understand some of these issues, you require really deep study and power of analysis, and not just want to be frivolous. And as far as the commission is concerned, commission would not like to give an advertisement every third day saying, no, we are doing our duty, kindly believe us. No. We know our audience. Our audience is the general, the so-called common man of India. And we also know that they have so much faith in the system that in the last assembly elections to Jharkhand, when we went for the first review, we were told in the 8 left-wing affected districts, very badly affected, that in the last election, they had, after the elections, cut some fingers. They had to put fear in the minds of the voters. But again, a tribute to the administration of Jharkhand at that time, Jharkhand as well as Chhattisgarh, that in these areas, the polling percentage crossed 75%. So it is for, what also happens is that sometimes, suppose when you become an SP, which you will be in the next 4 or 5 years, you will find a whole lot of people wanting to discourage you also, saying, Madam, उसमें ये आएगा ट्वीट आपके बारे में, अगर आप सुबह से शाम तक ट्वीट्स के सर पे चलती नहीं तो आप जिला नहीं चला पाएंगे. You can once in a while take them seriously, selectively, but at the same time, you should be clear in your mind as to what you are doing is right or not. And at the end of the day, everybody can be wrong, but if you sit quietly for 15 minutes every day just by yourself, close the door, you will know what you did today was right or wrong, or where you have committed a mistake, where you can apply a corrective measure. That is, if you are a thinking person, willing to grow, willing to learn. Anything further? I said anything further? Or next question?
So, here. Good afternoon, sir. This is Anukriti.
Sorry?
This is Anukriti Sharma. I have 2 questions. The first is that in addition to electronic voting machines, is the Election Commission exploring the idea of e-voting through mobile apps, which would be very convenient for disabled or elderly with respect to...
Second question.
And the second question is, as you said in your speech, that Election Commission is providing protection to very senior officials, both in administration and police.
Only if they have done bona fide errors.
Yes, and if from the vindictive actions of the politicians when the elections are over, but you said it's only for 1 year. Why it has been limited to 1 year? Because even in future, any action by such political parties can be looked at from this angle also, that the particular officer acted against few people.
I will answer your second
Thank you.
question first. I'll answer your second question first. All political people are not vindictive. Many of your bureaucratic colleagues or seniors, you will find them to be equally vindictive. Sometimes more so, right? But they are in the system, so you can't provide protection against them. They have a weapon called ACR, which they are trying to utilize. Government has tried to kind of beat it by this 360-degree ACR, which has its own merits, but which probably has a lot of demerits also. And it is very rarely that political people get across. In my own, I have been associated as EC with the 16 elections to the Assembly, and as CC with the 14 elections, including these 4. And one major election which doesn't come in the life of every CC, lucky it came in my way, that is Lok Sabha elections throughout the country. I found exactly in all our states and union territories, exactly 3 administrations who were chasing the officers. 3 administrations. One in the northeast state and one in Indo-Gangetic Plains and one in south. So that's answer to inherent vindictiveness, which is a kind of subconsciously what you meant, or consciously you meant. Second is EVMs. You might have seen an ad which was given by Commission 3 or 4 days back, a full-page ad. I have probably forgotten to maybe it in my papers, but just go 4 or 5 days back in any, let's say, Times of India back page, for example, in all editions. And we have not made any statement that EVM is good, bad, indifferent. All we have said is that so many elections have happened in the country with the EVMs. And this has been the result. And in that also we didn't say government. We said party with maximum votes. That's a different issue. For example, post-election what happens is not the domain of the commission. In Bihar, for example, in the last assembly elections, the highest number of votes were secured by 1% more by one party. But the government was formed by the other 2 parties, by coalition. That is not our thing. Secondly, I'd like to tell you who are the people who have been supervising. There is a committee called Technical Advisory Committee. At present, it is headed by Professor D.T. Shahani, who was member of the committee since 2006 and has been chairman of the committee since last 4 or 5 years. He is emeritus professor, honorary emeritus professor for life in IIT Delhi. The other is Professor D.K. Sharma. He is honorary emeritus professor for life in IIT Mumbai. Third is Dr. Rajat Mona, who has done some of the most esoteric research on space side, from the IT point of view, and is now director of IIT Bhilai. In fact, once or twice a month, we have informal interaction also, and once or twice I found them very dispirited.
I wasn't questioning the authenticity or genuineness of EVM. I was just asking that for the convenience of voters, are we exploring
Yes,
the
I'll come
option
to
of
that.
e-voting through
I
mobile
recall-
apps?
I recall. You see, we are doing a project with
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Tejvi Singh. And the question I wanted to ask you was, do you think that the concept of one nation, one elections hold promise as a future concept for our Indian elections?
desirable goal, difficult to achieve till the basic laws are amended. For example, we are now having elections to the 4 states and 1 UT, right? This month. The counting will finish on 2nd May, which means in the normal course, the elections to these states will be due in 2026, right? And the elections to Parliament will be due in 2024. Unless you align the life of the Parliament with the life of state legislatures by amendments in the law, which is the domain of legislature. Otherwise, yes, I'm not giving you a bureaucratic reply. Desirable, but you require amendments. And for that kind of amendments, you also require a certain modicum of political consensus across the spectrum. You see, all this started getting disturbed historically in 1967, when for the first time you had different governments in the states compared to government in the center. Political party in the center was different. In the states, you started getting, starting from Indo-Gangetic plain, different kinds of governments, right? With different parties, I mean. In the south, you started having regional parties, right? After that, the alignment has never come about. And unless this alignment comes about, it may remain desirable goal, not a pipe dream, but desirable goal. But it may not be possible till these amendments are done.
Good afternoon, sir. Myself Lokesh Kumar. And as India being the strongest and largest democracy in the world, what is your humble opinion about the first past the poll system in the elections, sir?
Sorry?
First past the poll system of the methodology in the elections.
First,
Pass the poll system.
what do you mean to say?
Sir, the largest, number of votes getting a person get elected rather than the proportional methods of.
No, I think this, there is no proportional representation on the, in the offering.
Thank you, sir.
We do have proportional representation. Our first preference votes and second preference votes only in Rajya Sabha so far, but not in the Lok Sabha. And I don't think at the moment it's even on the drawing board stage.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Kantilal Patil. Sir, my question is regarding FAME community certificates that are used for filing nomination for elections. Sir, in my native place, a particular community have registered themselves as ST in 2011 census, but none of them have the certificates with them. So when the Gram Panchayat election comes, our Gram Panchayat usually gets ST category seat, reserved category seat. So the people, they file the nomination by showing the paper that says that they have applied for the ST category certificate. And on that, they fight the election and they win and they complete their whole term. But no one's questions are because our verification on authentication of their certificates is lacking, and as our system take too much time also. So sir, and this is continuing in our native place for 20 years. So sir, question is where does the official fail to put such people behind bar, and why such things are happening openly despite everyone knowing it? Or is it neglected so because it is happening at low level, that is Gram Panchayat level? Thank you.
So, when it comes to Election Commission of India, as per the mandate given to us by the Constitution, we conduct the elections of the Honorable President of India, Honorable Vice President, Rajya Sabha members, Lok Sabha members, State Assembly, and these elections to state councils. the elections to the urban local bodies and rural local bodies, be it panchayats or municipal bodies, is not our domain. That is given to the state election commissioners. Having said that, in fact, as superintendents of police, maybe you will get a lot of, nobody can stop if X gets a certificate by forgery. Nobody ever stops Y from lodging an FIR. And these days, the FIR is getting more and more, by the way. In some states, a lot of people were disqualified after 4 years of study from MBBS. You might have read in the papers because of these false certificates. So I'm sure when you are ASP or SP, if you get any such complaint, kindly take the strictest action.
Yes, sir. Definitely, sir. Thank you.
As I said, we've all been through this intervals, and this is something that we're all looking forward to. Next, I'd like to thank sir and highlight some of them. Sir recognized the increasing role of women in governance by mentioning various responsibilities and statesmanship are something that we can all look up to.